it's no secret that you need a strong brand, but what does that exactly mean? And how do we go about building one? And how do you ensure that your brand both stands out and supports your business? And that's why we created this podcast, 10 More Questions. We explore this relationship between business and brand and chatting to thought leaders, industry leaders about how exactly do you turn a brand from a cost center into a company asset. As always, I'm your host, Ross Drakes. Today, we have Ethan King as our guest in an episode titled by an AI tool, How to Amplify Your AI, Authentic Influence in the Age of AI, Artificial Intelligence. Ethan is somebody who I know from all the work I've done in EO. He's a former president of EO Atlanta. He's a TEDx speaker, best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money. He's won 5 global awards from the Entrepreneurs Organization for creating member experience products that blend innovation and impact. His latest book, ChatGPT to Double Your Business in 90 Days, has helped thousands of small business owners leverage AI and automation to scale at record speed. As a co-host of the King's Moves podcast, Ethan shares game-changing insights on AI, business, leadership, and life mastery. He's the visionary behind Stuff for Geeks, Zeus Closet, and Six Pack Dads. I can also verify that he does have a six-pack. I've had the honor of seeing it in real life. And when he's not traveling the world with his family, Ethan is probably on stage somewhere energizing audiences to level up personally and professionally. His mission is to empower you, the dreamers, the hustlers, the radical pursuers of excellence, to not only build wildly profitable businesses, but to truly have it all on your terms. Welcome to the podcast, Ethan.
Thanks, Ross. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I do want to say one thing about your introduction, which was wonderful, by the way. But if you say that you've seen my six-pack in person, here in America, we have to say pause. And then these days, you have to say no diddy after that. Do you know what that means?
Okay. That means that there wasn't anything. Yeah. No diddy.
You know
no
who Diddy is, right? Diddy's been in the news.
I do.
Yeah, you can. Okay,
he's not been known for being moral or just. Let's say that.
Right. So we'll keep it light, but yeah, we say no Diddy, and it's stuff for Greeks, and we can talk about this a little bit more. But the Greeks system, the fraternity and sorority system in the collegiate in the U.S., that's who we make the apparel for. A lot of people say stuff for geeks, but it's actually stuff for Greeks. And
did I make a mistake there? I'm also slightly dyslexic, so I feel like I almost got your invite.
People do it all the time, and it gives me an opportunity to tell more about the business, so I love it.
Okay. So if you have a sorority, they can get really high quality merch from you.
Yeah, that's actually how I got started out in entrepreneurship. That was a school project. It was for a branding class. We had to create this fictitious company and design the website, the business cards, the logo, all of the marketing collateral around this fictitious company. And this was back in the early 2000s when I built it. And at the time, I had just crossed into my fraternity, and I was designing all the things for all the Greeks around campus because I'm an artist by training. And so that company, it actually ended up becoming a real business. And we're still one of the top players in e-commerce when it comes to Greek fraternity and sorority apparel.
I love that. There's so many good things in there. Firstly, you picked like a really, really, really specific niche. So you can make something like really specific for an audience, which many people don't think about. So often people are like, well, who are you for? I'm for everyone. How did you decide specifically to go after that tiny section of market, which is obviously big enough to keep you in business for probably more than 20 years now, 20 something years?
Yeah, it's been almost 25 years. Yeah, I wish I could say that I had the business training and insight, but at the time I did not. It just happened to be what I was really passionate about and into at the time. Looking back on it, I guess it's kind of that ikigai, right? Where I was always into art, drawing and painting growing up, and took professional art classes and had my work in exhibitions in high school. When my parents asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was an artist, like drawing and painting. But then my parents told me, artists don't make any money until after they're dead, right? So, but I pursued that channel anyway. So I married that I fused that together with the whole Greek experience, which is a big deal in the U.S. And we actually serve now over 500 different Greek letter organizations that each have a different purpose and, of course, a different brand image and logo and crest and colors and all of that. But people have passion behind their Greek letters and their affiliations. So that's what, again, I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, this is what I'm going to go in on. I was already doing it for friends for free, just drawing up jackets and flyers and t-shirt ideas. So that's what I encourage emerging entrepreneurs to do, is to pursue something that you would do for free anyway, that you have a passion for, a genuine passion for, but it's also something that the market wants to pay for. And it's a very, very specific niche, because
Mm.
if you can really dial it in, then you'll appeal more to someone who just does things for everyone. And if you can go into that niche first, you can always expand later, because later on, once we opened our retail store, Zeus's Closet, in 2009, we had already went so deep into the fraternity and sorority niche, and we built a name for ourselves online, that at that point, after being in the game for almost 10 years, it was easier to expand into other verticals. And now we do things for the entertainment industry and film and TV and business swag and things like that, and school uniforms. But I
Mm.
always encourage people to start really specific.
I love that. I mean, in the work we do at Nice Work, we always look for the founders to to articulate their point of view. What is the thing? What is the idea? What made you choose to do this? Like, what is that sort of passion, that driving force that you can put your energy and effort into? Because that's something that's very hard to duplicate. It's very hard for somebody else to sort of, just copy that, because it's your unique view of this specific chunk of the world. And I think, to bring it back to the topic today, you talk about authentic influence. Can you, my first question is, why should people care about authentic influence? And, what is it in this strange age we find, where everyone can write, everyone can make images, everyone can make movies using these powerful tools. And some people are embracing it wholeheartedly, and others are running away screaming.
Yeah, well, the reason it's so important is because since anyone can generate content, it all starts to sound robotic. And how many times have you been on LinkedIn and you've seen someone write a post or an article, and you just know that they use ChatGPT to write it? Like, everything is perfect title case, and they have a bunch of emojis in it, and it's using words like explore and dive and delve and unlock, and it has all these M dashes. I mean, all of these are dead giveaways, right? So there's no, what do we do when you encounter something like that? Like, you tend to want to just scroll past it. And there is, at least for me, I tend to have more of a dismissive attitude towards it if I know that you just use AI to write it. So what I teach people is how to authentically, like, inject your human element, what makes you special, your stories, your memories, your experiences, because that's what makes you human. How can we inject that soul into our AI so that we can still leverage AI for the time savings and for the productivity magnification, but it actually sounds like you, and you're giving your genuine, true, real experiences.
Yes, I mean, I think we always ask people this, like, why should anyone care about this? So if you've written something, is the only reason you have that somebody should care about it that I made it and I put it out there? And I think this is what's happening so much, is people are using these tools just to create things that they wouldn't even want to read themselves. So
Right.
what is it of yourself that you're putting in there that is precious to you, that you care about? Because that means somebody else outside of you can look at that and go, oh, there's actually, something interesting here. I'm willing to spend my time looking at it.
Exactly. And as you know, Ross, we connect as human beings. We connect through storytelling. And if you can use AI to help you with your storytelling, but if you don't give it actual content, it will just make up a story, and which may not be true. As we know, that's hallucinating, right? So here's what I encourage people to do. And let me give a little bit of background too. In fact, I'll tell you a story. So I've mentioned to you my origins in entrepreneurship that started out with stuff for Greeks, custom fraternity and sorority gear. Then we opened up the apparel store, Zeus's Closet. And some of your listeners may be thinking, I thought we were talking about AI today. Like, why does this guy teach AI? Well, the thing is, back in about 11 years ago, we hit a very rough patch in our business, and we were fighting a legal battle that almost put us out of business. Like, we had a choice, either fight to save our business and keep it alive, or we could have given up and filed bankruptcy. But we chose to fight. And in order to fight, I had to do more with less. So that's when I first got into marketing automation. I signed up for a 3-day class where we learned email automation, and I just I just went crazy with it because I'm like, if I can understand this, I was an art major in college, so no computer science background or anything like that. If I can understand how to do this, which I did immediately, I implemented it and we grew our company. And we not only saved our company by putting automations in place, email automation, social media, phone systems, like all of the things, we were able to save our company. And not only that, but double our revenue with half the staff that we had going into that legal battle. So after that, I just went to an automation first mindset for everything in our business and in my personal life. And that's what I teach in all of our programs. Even if you go back to my first book, Wealth Beyond Money, I talk about automating in every area of your life, your finances. If you can set up, I got this from the book, I think it's called The Automatic Millionaire. Highly recommend it. But it basically talks about putting your finances on autopilot, setting up automatic that siphon out your money into different buckets so that it's harder to access. And so you're not having to think about it and do the thing. But all of these little small, tiny hacks like that, even in fitness, I give my Six Pack Dads program is just hacks. I didn't grow up athletic. I didn't start working out until I was 30 years old. But I figured out, and it was due to a health scare, which is a whole nother story. So I figured out how to apply different automations and simplification hacks to my fitness in order to achieve the goal of getting my health right, getting my cardiovascular fitness right. As a side effect of the things I was doing, I ended up getting a six pack, and Six Pack Dads is more marketable than saying, work out to preserve your health. So that's the whole thing. I'm all about simplicity and automation in every area of life. And I believe that you can have it all if you just look for the simplest approach to that. So bringing that up to current day, AI is really just automation. It just happens to be the most massive form of automation that we've ever encountered in human history, which is now in the hands of everyone. So it's been democratized. And that is why we're in this revolution that is moving so fast. And if you don't keep up, you're going to get left behind quickly. And we're going to see companies that will disappear if they don't keep up with the trends and get ahead of it. So we need to lean in to adapting and adjusting. Something that's often misquoted, we always hear only the strong survive, but that's not the actual quote that Darwin said. He said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's not the most intellectual, but the species that survives is the one that is most able to quickly adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. And that's what we need to do. I encourage business leaders to lean in and embrace a spirit of adapting and adjusting. And it matters now more than ever. Because if you're dismissive about AI, or if you're resistant to it or fearful, or you think it's just a passing trend, or you treat it like a toy, you run a real risk of being left behind.
I love that. I was actually talking to a colleague of mine who was super nervous about using AI and was freaked out about it. And, I was asking him about his life and what he was doing. And he was sharing that his son has reached sort of middle school and his projects are getting more and more complicated. And his knowledge has now fallen behind his kids. So his kids bringing him problems that he can't actually input on. So the kids are asking me like, Dad, we're learning about fluid dynamics, talk about this. And he's like, I don't really know. So I was like, well, why don't you use these tools to solve that? Because that feels like a much smaller challenge to tackle. And if you get it wrong, like when you started, your kid thinks you know nothing. At least here you can maybe pull off that, a little bit. And I saw him again at the GLC now, and he was saying that him and his kid have been building custom GBTs together, and using them to like program stuff for his college classes, and he's super enjoying it. So now the technology has unlocked this feeling of boldness in him that he can be bold. And I'm like, well, why don't you carry that into your business? Why don't you carry that into your brand? You can use that same thinking to, like you say, achieve things that probably might not have been available to you for resource or skill or whatever that is now, infinitely possible. Like I've seen people build custom billing apps just using Claude and ChatGPT, for their business, which in the past would be, contract a dev house and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and take forever to kind of build this. Now you can fiddle around with it and be bold with it, which is quite exciting.
Quite exciting. What a time to be alive. There's a website called there'sanaIforthat.com that last time I checked, it had over 35,000 AI apps that people have built, some of them free, some of them paid, some freemium. But that just goes to show you how it has completely changed the game, because anyone with no coding experience can now create apps. All you have to do is be able to think about it and communicate in plain English what you want. And you can fire up Claude and get it to start writing the code for you. And if you encounter any part of the instructions that you don't understand, tell it to, hey, explain that to me step by step, like I'm in 8th grade, and it will do it for you. And we have this thought partner. We've never had this before, where we have a thought partner that is the smartest person to ever live. And we all have it in our pockets. I mean, how amazing is that? So business doesn't come with a level playing field, but now we have the tools to level the field ourselves.
So let's come back to, I was really interested in your title, this authentic influence. How do people use these tools and not just sound like everybody else, not just disappear into the malaise of especially if you go into something like LinkedIn, everyone's following these LinkedIn training courses, how to build your profile, and you get this message that's like, hey Ross, I see, insert personal message about what I see from you here. I think we should be in a network together. And then you go look at the content, and all the content, like you say, is exactly that. It's like, find me 3 interesting things that are happening in insert business landscape here, and make a LinkedIn post. And you go look at it and you're like, I can't feel this person. I can't get a sense of who this human is, and therefore, like you say, I'm just gonna write the whole thing off completely.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing about AI; it will give you an answer no matter what. It's the ultimate yes man. So it's not going to, by default, it's not going to say to you, "Hey, you know what, Ross? I think we should put a little bit more of you into this. I can give you the 3 things, but what's your experience with it, Ross? Tell me about that." It's never going to do that. It's just going to give you exactly what you asked for, and it's going to encourage you and tell you in a friendly way, like, yes, post this. This will be great on LinkedIn. But here's what people should do. Back up before you ever get to that point. This is what most people have not done that they should do. You need to go into your LLM of choice. I've just used ChatGPT as an example for now, but go into your settings where your profile is, and you can click on Customize ChatGPT. And it will open up some fields where you can tell ChatGPT about yourself and traits that you want your ChatGPT to have. And most people have these fields empty. If those fields are empty, then you're going to get generic robotic responses unless you inject certain requests.
You can turn the personalities on, yeah.
So what I recommend people do is program their ChatGPT at the settings level. And here's how you do that. First, you need to tell ChatGPT about yourself. You can go have it read your LinkedIn profile and give a description about you. Have it read your business website and have it give a description of your business. What you want to do is put together a few paragraphs about yourself where you'll just write, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I love skiing, I live in Atlanta. Here's some information about my business. This is what we do. And we've been in business for 22 years. These are our core values. This is what makes us different from other businesses in our space. Here's some awards that we've won. Also, I like to get personal. I tell my ChatGPT about my interests and my hobbies and my future goals in life so that it really, really understands me. So in each one of these fields under your custom instructions in your settings, each box has about, I think it's a 1,500 character maximum at the time we're recording this. And this is April 24th, 2025. I'd like to timestamp.
Could be like 25,000 by tomorrow afternoon.
You're right. But fill up that 1,500 character box with all the information you can possibly think of about yourself. Then there's another box in there that says, what traits should ChatGPT have? That's where you're going to describe your writing and speaking style. But you're not going to come up with the description to go in there. Go back, fire up another chat in ChatGPT or in Claude and say, hey, I'm going to feed you some excerpts of my writing and speaking, and I want you to analyze my writing and speaking style so that then I want you to craft a prompt for my custom instructions to imitate my brand voice. And then make sure ChatGPT understands. So I love to say, do you understand? And have it repeat back to you what the instructions that you want it to do. And then after that, give it tons of samples of your authentic writing and speaking. You may go and copy social media posts you've written, maybe articles that you've written. It could be a transcript from a speech that you gave, or a podcast guest appearance with the part with you speaking, whatever. And it needs to be things that you authentically wrote without using AI, of course. So as many examples as you can bring in. It's not about what you're saying, but it can analyze how you speak and how you write by you pasting in all these examples. And it will then give you a set of custom instructions for you to paste into ChatGPT's instructions or into any other LLM, so that you customize the brand voice. Like, you literally follow up with that and say, okay, now write the 1,500 character custom instructions to imitate my speaking style, and begin with respond in my voice, and then it will describe your voice.
I love that. I mean, as you're talking, it always occurs to me, like, this is no longer, it used to be a volume game that we were fighting, like, can you get more content out there quickly? And the people like Gary Vee that figured out how to, like, kind of turn it into a machine and just be on every platform. And that's now everyone can do that.
Right.
It feels almost now like an input game. Like, how can I put better, more authentic stuff in to get the right kind of stuff out? Like, how do I program these things with my thoughts better? And I think the people who are going to use these tools the most effectively are the ones who are able to do that. There's a guy called Professor Galloway, who Scott Galloway, he's been writing for decades. He programmed an AI that mimicked him as a person. So if you want to ask him a question, you could go to profg.ai and ask him a question, and it would go back on his, like, all the stuff that he said throughout the ages and kind of answer it, which is quite a cool thing. But I mean, I guess where you're going with this is one of the things that we encourage our people to do is to activate their brand. And a critical component to that in today's world is this idea of who is the leader, or who is the team behind this? What do they think about the world? And we're seeing more and more that people are looking to companies and their leadership to decide if those are companies worth paying attention to or not. And you see this with Tim Cook has more followers than Apple. People are more interested in what Tim Cook has to say than what Apple has to say, because they believe when Tim Cook is talking, it is something that he's sharing. It's a thought that he's got. Apple is only ever going to market to me, so, like, I don't want to hear what they have to say. I'll go and find out about the new iPhone on my own. I want to hear what Tim has to say. And there's a guy named Carl Pei who started a company called OnePlus that did really, really well at disrupting the cell phone market. And then he sold that into Oppo, and eventually left and started a new company called Nothing, the Nothing phone. And it was immediately successful because people followed the person, not necessarily the company. So how do you use people using this to sort of build their own personal profile and build up their own sort of thought base, so that people can start to actually attach importance to what this person has to say?
Yeah, you brought up some great examples, and there are countless examples. Look at Ryan Reynolds, the actor who played Deadpool. He's a billionaire now because he leveraged his personal brand. That's where we are in this space. If you're a business owner, you need to have your personal brand somewhere attached to it in the forefront. That's what the winners are doing. I wish I had done that sooner in my business. We had a little bit of business success early on, but I actually used to hide. I didn't want people to know who owned the company. At the time, my thinking was flawed. And I said, I just want the brand to stand on its own. Zeus's Closet, Stuff for Greeks. Looking back, if there's one regret, if I would have injected more of Ethan into it, it probably could be 10 times bigger. I mean, if you mentioned Apple, Steve Jobs, even though he's been deceased for I don't know how many years, is still mentioned in the same breath as Apple. In fact, I listened to a podcast the other day. I was in my car, and did you know Joe Rogan has an AI podcast? So it's separate from the real Joe Rogan show. There's Joe Rogan AI. And I listened to an interview between AI Joe Rogan and AI Steve Jobs. And they talked for like 2 hours about modern day things that are happening. So look that up. I didn't think I would really enjoy it because I'm like, this is AI. I mean, they're very transparent. They tell you that going into it. But it was a really, really good conversation. And it mimicked their voice and mimicked things they would say. Of course, being that Steve Jobs is no longer with us. But that's the power. That's where we are. And this is just in its early primitive stages. This is in its infancy, and it's only going to get better and better. So what you can do now is start building that brain, because that's how all of these AI tools work, is they have a knowledge base. I like to call it a brain, but in some capacity, there's a background to that AI bot where it's getting information from it. For example, in that AI Steve Jobs podcast interview example that I gave, it's referencing every book ever written about Steve Jobs, every speech that he ever gave, and the transcript from that. All of that is in the knowledge base of this AI tool. So as it's interacting with anyone else, it references that knowledge base, and it cross-references it with whatever's going on today. And it can, using mathematical, it can transform it. That's what the T stands for in GPT. It can take that information that it's pre-trained on, transform it, and generate a new idea based on what it thinks it's going to say by all of the context that's been given. So it's really just math. It's just language. It's like a big language calculator to figure out the next best thing. It's like predictive text in Google. Like if you go to Google and you start typing in Ross D, and it'll probably predict Ross Drakes or whatever, Rick Ross, whoever else comes up, but it knows what you're about to say, and it's usually right. ChatGPT is like that predictive text on steroids. So knowing that, how can you, anyone out here, anyone listening to this, how can you start to build up that knowledge base and create the brain of you in whatever custom GPTs you build, in the custom instructions for whatever platform you're using? Because you can do this in Gemini, Claude, basically all of the LLMs right now. And then, but we're only going to need to know how to do this more and more in the future, because this is what makes AI authentic. So even once we have robots walking around our houses doing chores, we'll be able to converse with those robots. It's not just about what they're doing, but it's also what they'll be able to say. You'll be able to converse with these robots like you can converse with ChatGPT or Claude and have a conversation with them. So what are you going to put in the brain of that robot, in its knowledge base? And the more information you can put in there about yourself, it's great for thought leaders. So if you've written books, put your book in the knowledge base. Put articles you've written in the knowledge base. The more content you put in there about you, the more it's going to sound and think like you, and can probably even come close to making decisions that you would make based on the context that it's been given. And then once you have that foundation, there are lots of tools now like HeyGen, where you can digitize yourself visually.
That's
And it
creepy.
can be, you can go to 11 labs and you can clone your voice. So now not only does it think like you, but it also looks and sounds like you.
I think, it comes back to that idea of the earlier people start, playing with this, being creative with it, because that creativity and how you use it is what's going to make the difference in the long term. That applying the stuff interestingly and playing with it is what's going to let you eventually be able to outsource completely a lot of this stuff. Like once you've built up enough of those things around yourself, then it's easier to do. I mean, I struggle with writing. Like I said earlier, I'm a dyslexic, so I start writing. I find it quite taxing to do. But I'm much better when I form my ideas into a presentation, a talk, a lecture, an interview. Any of these things work much better for me, for the way my brain works. And you inspired me to think like, okay, I can actually take a lot of that content. I mean, I've got hundreds of hours of me talking into a camera, into a microphone, and that's going to be a huge base of knowledge to feed into this thing and train it up.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So to everyone listening here, if you don't already have hundreds of thousands of content like Ross does, and like I do, like start creating it now. Start writing in your authentic voice. Even if you journal, like maybe take some of that, put it into ChatGPT, as long as it's not super sensitive information. But you could literally,
the greatest leak of all time, Ethan's personal diary.
Take photos of journal pages. You don't have to retype everything. Just take photos and put them into ChatGPT. Say, hey, I want you to know about me. Start summarizing this information about me and put it into my memory. You can say to ChatGPT in a chat, once you type something, say, add this to my memory. And actually, if you go in your settings, there are things that it remembers about you. And there's a whole list of memories that you can delete if they don't line up with what actually happened. Like if you're doing something for someone else, you might want to delete some of those memories. But you can build up this memory base, and that will also influence the output that ChatGPT gives you. So all of this, it comes down to one word: context. Your authentic context. The more you put into it, the better and more genuine the results will be. I have my chat GPT is so trained and so dialed in that I can go and write an article about something. I built a custom GPT where I can just flip on my microphone and tell a story that actually happened in my business. Like, for example, I could say, hey, now imagine I fired up my chat GPT. I go into into my custom GPT, and I turn on my microphone and I just start talking because it's faster than typing. And I say, hey, for my company, Zeus's Closet, we had the originators of hip hop music, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, came in our store, and they wanted to get some jackets made, and we made their jackets, and they actually wore them on the Grammys. How amazing is that? Boom, done. I hit enter, and it will write an article for me. It'll write a blog post for me, all in my brand voice. Then I've taken articles that ChatGPT has written for me. I've run them through an AI content detector, and it's come back as 100% human generated content, even though ChatGPT wrote it for me. But it's because of the context. It's because of the background that I've given it in my custom instructions, in my memories, and actually in the prompt. And I tell a story I speak it because it's going to come out natural. I'm not worried about grammar and all that. ChatGPT doesn't care. It can clean that up for you. So just speak it, tell a story, and it's going to weave it into a nice narrative that actually sounds like what you would say anyway, and is going to be compelling to people. That's what I mean by authentic influence.
I think there's some great nuggets in there in terms of how to build up that context and use it effectively to extend. I think there's also, we work with brands and companies and people to articulate like what's important to them, what is their voice, what is their tone, what are their, so you can also work with the companies in your ecosystem to train these things even better, and get professionals to sort of collaborate with you to be able to sort of build up that context, because that context, like you say, is almost an asset. It's an asset that you can use to achieve so much more. And as the tools evolve and get more powerful, suddenly, Ethan can have a live TV show every day whilst sitting on the beach in Maui and not actually being in the thing, because there's enough context and enough personality that you've put in there as this kind of extension.
Yeah, that's where we're headed. There are already tools that can sit in on Zoom meetings for you. Your avatar can sit in on a Zoom meeting and respond to inquiries without you having to be there. That exists right now. And it's only going to get better and better. Man, I imagine 5 years from now, 5 or 10 years from now, it won't even be a scheduling issue. It doesn't matter if my schedule allows me to be on Zoom. I can say, hey, my avatar will be there. I can be on 10 different Zoom meetings at once, and they're going to say what I would say anyway. And then I could just get the report. And so we are quickly evolving to a point where the expectation is that every human being is a manager of digital AI employees. And that's the knowledge set that you're going to need to know, the same way that we know how to use Google Docs and Microsoft Excel and Office. We're all going to be expected at some point, I think within the next 10 years, to be able to know how to build and manage AI employees. Everyone. So might as well get on it now. And I think the quickest path to that is to learn how to use ChatGPT and how to build a custom GPT, because it's an early form of an agent or a digital employee. And start with any repetitive task that you have in your business or life. That's the easiest thing to start to outsource to AI. So anything where you have a 1, 2, 3, somebody does these steps and they do it every single day, either you or an assistant or an employee, take that task and figure out, how can I do this using AI? And if you don't know where to start, just take the task that you're already doing and ask AI, ask ChatGPT, how can I automate this? Walk me through the steps.
I think there's also, if you look at, there's this rise of we working with more and more sort of small small businesses doing great things. So lots of executive coaches or, fractional CMOs, like people where it's like one or two people in the company, but doing so kind of like so much. I think taking this idea into businesses like that, and instead of scaling the head count, actually just start scaling the digital employees.
Right.
How do we capture really good notes? How do we go and do deep research on people before they arrive? How do we summarize reams of notes from board meetings and put it into a 10-minute kind of summary so that when I walk into that room, I'm infinitely more prepared
Right.
than what I was. I mean, I was interested. Somebody had an AI note taker in a meeting with me, and it came back, and one of the scores of the thing was how engaged the people, and we were like, it was a 78. I was like, why were we only a 78? What went wrong in the meeting we only scored a 78? But I guess these things are going to start having such an impact on how brands and companies show up in the world. And we've already seen businesses, like small businesses, disrupt big ones. But I think we're just going to see more and more of that kind of thing where small people doing big things are infinitely more agile than large organizations that take a very, very long time to change direction and turn around.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're about to enter an era where we have more of these micro nano businesses that are one or two people and a bunch of AI bots that are getting things done that small and mid-sized businesses are doing today. So I think we'll still have some enterprise companies, but I think it'll be more like these independent owners combined with AI. We'll start to see more of that type of economy start to take shape. And it's funny you mentioned marketing agencies. A lot of my clients, I do AI consulting. A lot of my clients are marketing agencies. And one thing that we'll do is teach them how to set up different project folders and capture the brand voice for each client. So now you can go into that folder and speak. Everything you write, everything you generate will be in that particular client's brand voice. But if you go into a different project folder, it'll have that client's brand voice. And in Claude, if you have the paid version of Claude, you can actually just select. There's a checkbox where you choose which brand voice do you want to speak in today. And on the back end of that, there are different sets of custom instructions. So this is key to do. I encourage everyone to at least start there in customizing your tools, because the future is coming at us fast. You mentioned AI note takers for Zoom sessions. Look at how fast it used to be weird or kind of creepy when somebody's note taker joined the meeting a few years ago. Now it's just expected. There'll be more note takers in a meeting than there are real people. That's normal. And now we're getting into the age of wearables. I don't have it on right now, but I usually wear a necklace, a Claude note pen. It's an AI note taker for me in real life, for real life meetings and seminars. And all I have to do is squeeze it and it records the conversation. And then it immediately syncs with my phone and I can go and scroll through any conversation. I can have AI transcribe it and it will show me a mind map. I can interact with the conversation and say, hey, what did I say about this? Or what did Susie say about the project that's coming up next week? And I'll say, oh, she said this. Would you like me to draft a follow-up email? So for every real life conversation that's happening. And I think we're going to soon see a reemergence of wearables. Like Google is coming out with glasses, so is Apple, and Meta is already have the Meta glasses. But we're going to see more and more of that. And the phone will slowly start to go away. And the wearable glasses will become our new phones. We'll be able to see these pop-up displays in our field of vision. We can talk to it. For example, I taught an AI workshop in Minnesota yesterday, and I showed them, I put on my smart glasses and I can talk to AI. So what will this do for education? Because I can ask you, Ross, how many miles is it to the moon? Do you know? No, what you would probably
No
just
idea.
Google it if you really wanted to know. But I just asked, I said, hey, Meta, how many miles is it to the moon? And in 5 seconds, it told me in my ear, 289,000 miles. So what does that do for our education system now that our kids won't have to learn trivial things, facts like that, or things about history? Because why would anybody spend mental energy learning about something that AI can just tell you in your ear in 5 seconds? And that time, that 5 seconds that it took for it to think and say it back in my ear is going to feel like an eternity in a couple of years. We're going to expect it instantly. We're not even going to have to talk out loud to AI to get answers. At some point, we'll be able to just think it, and then we'll get the answer back. That's
It'll
where
be
all of this.
contextually serving you information as you're talking. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think that begs the question of what are the important skills and things where people need to invest. And you know, I always come back to those kind of those very human things, those personality, the quirks, the what makes you special, fun, joy, humor, you know, all of these are things that feel quite frivolous. And it's interesting because I've got a 6-year-old boy, Sebastian, and we in the process of changing him from one school to another, but they've been like pushing so hard on him that it's like killing his little personality.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I think that's going to be the last sort of piece that humans are going to hold on to, is like, how do we give these things personality? How do we make these special and quirky and interesting? Because
Yes.
as soon as information becomes ubiquitous, that's no longer the differentiating factor. So then it comes down to how do I make myself appealing and interesting to other people? The only thing I really have that's unique and special to me is my personality and my context. You know, you started with Ikigai, the things that interest me, like the weird things that make up a Ross Drake's brain, is what's going to make somebody either like or dislike the things that I'm creating or offering or selling or whatever I'm, you know, trying
Right.
to do. So I think it's, you know, on the one hand, you know, if I were to think about how do people who are building their brands and building their personal brands do this in a meaningful way, it's like one part is embrace the tech, like, and understand it and personalize it and train it. But then the other one is, you know, either working yourself or getting an outsider's perspective in to be like, what's special here? Like, what's interesting here? What's unique here that I can use and lean into over time? Because that's what's going to be interesting. And you talk about Ryan Reynolds. Like, Ryan Reynolds is a great example of someone who leveraged his personality to
Mhm.
be huge, like massive. That
Yeah.
whole Mint Mobile thing was just him being himself, and
Genius.
people bought thousands of mobile phone contracts and phones and
Yeah.
internet and data because they liked the dude who was there. And yes, he's a professional and he's an actor and he's like exceptional at what he does, but he didn't make a character and then play that. He just was like, hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds and I'm interesting. And I think businesses and people can do that same thing themselves, because people will
Yeah.
either like that or they'll hate it. And that's a good thing, because the ones that like it are the ones that are going to actually kind of like jump on board, as opposed to people who are kind of doing it because you're there, or yeah, okay, maybe I'll try it. Like, that's not a deep sort of connection that you can make over the long term with people.
Yeah. Another thing about Ryan Reynolds, you know, his background isn't like, he's not a tech phone guy, yet he's become a billionaire through Mint Mobile. So a lot of times we disqualify ourselves from entering a certain market. Like, oh, I can't get into the mobile phone business. I don't know anything about that. I don't have the tech background or a smartphone background. I don't know anything about the networks. Ryan Reynolds didn't say anything about that. It doesn't matter. It's
Mm.
his personal brand outweighs all of that. So people are like, yes, I'm going to buy that because I like I liked Deadpool. That's the guy who played Deadpool. He's funny, and this is a cheaper phone service, so I'm going to sign up for it. So don't disqualify yourself, because now you have the tools to really really expand your presence. And you bring up something else that I want to touch on and make sure that we bring home for everyone. AI, you do need to master the tools, master the tech, because AI will allow us to be everywhere on screens. It's going to become so normal that we're going to get to a point very soon where anything we see on a screen, we're going to assume it's AI, or at least if it's not AI generated, it's at least AI influenced, because it's on a screen. That's going to be kind of the expectation. I mean, for example, you and I are on live right now, and we happen to be humans talking, but we could be two AI avatars talking to each other. That's quite
Mm.
possible that in a few short years, the technology will be that realistic that it can be just like we are talking right now. So while I think people we will start to file things in different categories, and things that are on a screen, oh yeah, that's probably AI. We won't have as much appreciation for them. Yes, it's how we'll operate our day to day, but I predict that we're going to have a resurgence in live, face to face human interactions And that will be valued so much more than anything that we see on the screen. Because you can't trust things that are on the screen anymore. It could be a deep fake. Anyone can deep fake right now. I mean, you can make the president say anything. It was the first thing when you see that someone says something, you're like, oh, is this even real? Like that's starting to enter your mind. Is this AI? So we're going to see more and more of that, and we won't trust it. But I predict a resurgence in things like live comedy shows and concerts where I'm getting that authentic human experience, because nothing can replace that. So remember that for your business as well. How can you, yes, master the tech tools, but also what makes your business special that you can deliver live in person, that is face to face, where people can look, touch, feel, smell you, and truly experience you as a person, because that will hold so much more value. I mean, we can make music right now. Anyone can go on suno.com and create a song using AI in 30 seconds, and it'll actually sound pretty good. Anyone can go on Sora.com and create a 5 or 10-second video that looks pretty good, looks pretty professional, high def and everything. So these things are going to kind of decrease in value if they appear on a screen, but live performance isn't going anywhere for a long time.
I think that's such a great note to end the chat on, Ethan. Thank you very much for your time. I think there's so much to think about, and the more I engage with this stuff, I think the more I realize how exciting it is. But and weirdly, everything's changing, but nothing's changing at the same time. Like we bought into ideas and products and things because we like the people behind them, and it's kind of coming full circle and going back again. I think just the opportunities have expanded so exponentially.
No, like, and trust. So, if I want to leave anyone with a final thought here, inject as much of your authentic personal self into your AI as possible. Nothing can replace your unique energy signature that you have as a human being. You can try to capture a lot of that and put it into the AI tools that you're using, because you do need to know how to use them and deploy them so that you can scale yourself massively and take advantage of this amazing revolution that we're in, because we are in the AI revolution, the automation revolution. And I don't want you to get left behind.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you very much. That's it for this week. But don't worry, we'll be back with more about the business of branding in the next episode. So subscribe to get every episode. Thank you, Ethan, for showing up. Yeah, so thank you for sharing your insight and your brilliance. And I've got 4 or 5 things I'm going to go away and play with tonight. And in the meantime, we'd appreciate it if you would like or share this episode with someone in your network, or leave a review for us. It's the best way to help us reach more people until we have an army of AI bots doing all of that for us. Yeah, so 10 More Questions is brought to you by Nice Work. We're dedicated to helping people and businesses make a dent in the world through brands that people actually care about. And now you know how to make AI clones of yourself. So thank you very much for listening. And until next one, bye-bye.